Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And it is Wednesday, July 22nd, first day of the Sprott show. Probably by the time you're watching this, I will be in the Miles Franklin booth at the Sprott conference. So come on by, talk some silver. And if you do need any silver, this episode is sponsored by Miles Franklin, where we'll be able to get you any information on that, because certainly a wild day in the market. I'm guessing there's a chance that you're aware that silver is now over $23. It was kind of funny because I made a video Monday, as you can see down here, where silver was crossing $20. So it took 4 years for silver to get back over to $20. Then if we call this about 11 o'clock at night to 8, then 9 hours to reach 21. Then from 8 until about, let's see, maybe we'll call this 18. What's 18? 6 p.m. So, about 10 hours to get to 22. And then interesting, didn't take much longer after that, touched 23. And now even on the Kitco chart, we're through 23. Let's take a look at the investing.com, which tracks the silver contract, and we see 23.37. So real quick, I'll probably comment on this more, but I think a congratulations is in order to my good friend Bill Murphy. Wow, look at all those other things that wow, Google not very kind to GATA. Come on there, fourth ranking. I'd like to point out, a lot of you have heard Bill Murphy throughout the years talk about how the thing's suppressed, but watch out when it hits 21, watch out when it hits 21. I mean, the man was saying that, telling people about that for years. And boy, was Bill Murphy right, because you got to 20, didn't take long for 21. And then, you're just seeing big moves now where clearly something is happening. Now, are we on the way to $50? I'm wondering. Certainly the conditions are in place. We'll touch on the September COMEX deliveries, which they're I guess I would equate their size. It reminds me of that massive Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end of the first Ghostbusters. We'll get to those numbers, but again, and would I be doing this now were it not for Bill Murphy and GATA? Would a lot of people be making money now were it not for Bill? I really think Bill deserves a round of applause. At least I will offer one. He got the 21 call right, which it really made me feel good thinking about him last night, where if anyone deserves to be recognized, I certainly think it's Bill. So if I may make one plug here before we continue on, there is the donate button. Where is the donate button? Where did it go? About GATA. How to help. There you go. Click on how to help. I've had Bill on the show. I'm really excited. He is already going to be well involved in Silverfest this September 12th to 13th, where we are going to have the greatest silver party I could plan in the world. Fortunately, we have people like Bill coming, but if you would like to make a donation, I know that really does go a long way in helping Bill and Chris continue to do the great things they've done, which probably wouldn't have this show today without them. So anyway, just want to point out, once again, Bill was right. 4-week change in the Silver Trust holdings. You've seen me track this before and hadn't looked. And then I'm like, because the last time I looked, it was like 60 million ounces. Now, keep in mind, Ted Butler feels that the main driver of the move to $50 in 2011 was because 60 million ounces were added following Ben Bernanke's QE2 launch in October of 2010. What a special. And that op-ed he wrote, I'm going to stay focused today, but we will giggle about that one in the near future. I promise you that. But so if 60 million ounces was enough to drive it to 50, here's 92 million ounces in the last 4 weeks. And I mean, to put that in perspective, all that blue there, actually better way of looking at it, see that jump there? So anyone who says, is silver moving too quickly, whatever that means, I get what you're saying. And it's possible that you're right. So factor that in. But if there's ever been, like, if you said, okay, let's say I could create the conditions in a certain asset that would guarantee, like, what would I have to do to make sure that when something moves, it moves violently? I mean, essentially, that's what you have in silver here in the last, really, since they hammered the price or spoofed it down to $12. Kind of backfired because you go from about 1100, let's see, where are we? A little over 1100 to now almost 300 million ounces higher. Keep in mind the gray line here, that's 2011 when the price is hitting $50. And here, while it's getting pummeled for the next 9 years, you think people were selling, right? Yet instead you see almost that 45-degree line. So the way I look at it, the great Peter Schiff analogy of the beach ball is stuffed so darn far underwater. Is that to say that we can't see $19 silver or, the thing? I mean, you almost have to expect that someday before the 30s, we're going to see the price go down $1 or $2. I think that's only natural volatility. I've updated my trading view that I've shared a little bit this week, where I did get massively long a bunch of silver options today. So factor that in. Hopefully, seems like so far so good. We'll see what tomorrow holds. But I'm doing that with the mindset, that it could go down, but especially as we'll touch on with what's coming up in the next couple months. I'm making that bet with the knowledge that I could lose this, but I could also, maybe we are at the point where we see some of those bigger moves. I mean, we're seeing them now. There's $1.72 today. So to me, at least, it is worth taking that bet right now. By all means, do what feels right to you and consult your financial professionals. Hopefully they don't work for JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, and maybe you may want to check elsewhere. But I know I promised a glorious headline in this video. Sorry I didn't get to it yet. There's just so much glorious stuff happening. But in case you're wondering how that could possibly be, I mean, if you tell me that the government is putting out fraudulent data, I'd say, well, we already know that. I mean, based on how fraudulent their other data is. But just on the surface of it, here is the CFTC Commitment of Traders report. And you have open interest of 178,367 contracts at 5,000 ounces per contract. Then you have this field that I'm guessing, whenever this was designed, they couldn't have known what was going to happen. Or maybe they could have. It's actually interesting. London gold pool collapses 1968. Gold drain forces Nixon to take U.S. off the dollar. By 1974, they've invented futures, COMEX contracts. So one scheme to replace another scheme. And it looks like the replacement scheme is about to blow. Will there be some equivalent of COMEX futures or some scheme by bankers to try and control the price, a couple of years from now? I have no doubt. I'm guessing that the price will be a lot higher when they try that. And anyway, if you multiply that 178,000 times 5,000 per ounce times this field they have here that's saying by net position, 4 or less traders are short 27.9% of the open interest, means that 4 traders, which I am assuming are banks, are short 248.821 million ounces of silver. In other words, for every dollar that silver goes up, according to these numbers, That collection of 4 banks collectively takes a loss of $248 million. In other words, from $20 silver on Monday to $23 silver today, those banks have lost about $750 million in a span of 3 days. Keep in mind, we've been hearing about how 2 market makers got blown out on the 23rd and 24th of March when gold rallied. We've heard about CIBC losing 60 million, HSBC losing 200 million, and at least if this data is accurate, and again, all these years where it's like big short position. Sometimes the banks pass it off to the hedge funds, but somebody is short these contracts, and whoever those 4 traders are, seems like it is not going well this week. Earlier this week, it did remind me of there were certain days when I was back on the New York Stock Exchange where you'd have wild moves and find out this shop got blown out or these guys got blown out. Kind of hard to know for sure what's going on behind the scenes, although I did check in with Andrew McGuire. We may have to get him on sooner than the first Tuesday of the month. Anyway, that is what the data shows, and darn fascinating. And certainly we've seen Bank of Nova Scotia leave. A lot of evidence to suggest banks are pulling away, and if that is what's happening now and is what continues, then it sure is going to be an interesting couple months. Especially, here's a look at the delivery notices today. In platinum, only 1, but up to 34.15. I'll show you how big that is in a second. Silver, another 242. Looks like 230 of these are JP Morgan ponying up the silver, which is always kind of fun just to think about. But you see, it's like, obviously there was 11,000 the first day, but there's these chunks being added. So now over 15,000. Again, something I am quite fascinated by and will be keeping you posted on here on Arcadia Economics. Another great reason to hit that subscription button as well as the notification bell, because in the platinum deliveries, as I mentioned, we're up to 34.15, which in context, last month there was 14. Before there was 8. Looks like here's the delivery month, 445, but I mean, just a whopper. And a few last notes before we wrap up. What do we have? This is silver, where the open interest, this was in the 130s. Look at the 21st yesterday, huge volume. So it's been getting bigger. It's, what are we on today? It's July 22nd. So we have about a week left, week and a half left in July, then all of August. So maybe 5 to 6 weeks before, similar to how this month we found, these record silver deliveries. We'll see how much of this gets closed out before then, but currently the number is about 10x what we've just seen. Again, I don't expect all of them to be posted for delivery. Although here in gold, you see 277,000. And I was listening to Craig Hemke's fantastic podcast. Where, by the way, if you sign up for tfmetals.com, use the code SLV, I'll send you a free copy of the audio version of the Big Silver Short. Craig did mention that at this equivalent time of the previous cycle, where we saw 55,000 contracts delivered in June, I believe it was, I think he said the number was at this equivalent this many days before notice day. It was about 230,000. So about 50,000 contracts more in the open interest. And I mean, it wasn't a random month. I mean, we saw big numbers in both silver and gold before that. They're just getting bigger. And with what's happening, as anyone's been watching the channel for any while, I've been talking about how, it'll stay there till no one cares. But once people start caring, and yesterday was the first day where it's like, this is starting to feel like 2011. It's what I remember. I'm not saying that it's going to play out, although I wouldn't be surprised at this point because it is starting to remind me a lot of just these types of days. And I guess the phrase that popped into my mind, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but sometimes I share my intuition and label it as that. I think it's guided me somewhat well. Are the sharks swimming in the water and smelling blood? I don't know if the sharks actually smell the blood. So anyway, however that goes, I mean, is it at least conceivable that people are like, wow, this thing's finally on the ropes, and now there's going to be a mad scramble to get metal and expose it any way you can? Gotta wonder, what is China doing? What is China sitting here thinking? What is Russia, Putin, who's talked about anything possible to stick it to the dollar, is loaded up on gold? I mean, it's not that hard for them to take a couple of $1 billion and, do what Eric Sprott is doing. And we've heard for you the last couple of years, a lot of the mainstream big name investors hopping into gold. I'm not saying everyone who goes to gold is the mindset for silver, but gee, you got to think there's a couple people out there with access to capital and a sharp trading desk. I'm not saying my book, The Big Silver Short, is changing the world, although part of it, when I was designing the whole thing, I always imagined like, well, hopefully, what if John Paulson, someone sends him a copy, and I don't know what the counter argument is. It always seemed to me that it was kind of like a secret that wasn't that we needed more reasons for the silver bugs to know, but just once enough people understood what was really going on, and then you have that prisoner's dilemma where I think China was happy to take gold for low price, but once you see people like running for what's there, it's at least set up. I cannot guarantee this, but the dynamics are set up in the perfect environment to create like a mad scramble. So at least the last 3 days of the silver price would indicate what we're seeing. I don't know what the next 3 days will be like, although I bought some short-term options too. So hopefully the next 3 days will be fun as well. Lastly, here, just a quick look at platinum. We saw 3,000 contracts just delivered. October, a bit farther out. I'm not sure whether that would be normal for what we'd see there, but these 48,000 open interest. And again, I'll keep you posted. So that's the best part. Folks, if you're watching this live, I am at the Sprott conference, the Miles Franklin booth. So anyone who's part of the show, come by, say hello. Would love to meet you and answer any questions in person or just make some Fed jokes. Those are always welcome. And lastly, if you want to know, if you're thinking more about how to handle this, and maybe instead of hearing me talk about it all the time, last night Brent Cook was on the show and really offered what I felt was some great insight and perspective. He's a speaker at the Sprott Symposium, and that interview is coming your way now.